Welcome to Gen Z Money, episode 7.
So I spoke to 13 different banks. I called 13 different banks. I got 13 different no's, right? But because I listened to podcasts, I was like, I'm just gonna keep calling these guys until someone points me in the right direction. And it was like blatant no's. So then on my 14th call with a bank, I got a maybe.
Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it, and I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding. 'Cause you got me holding.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Gen Z Money podcast, where we turn financial peace to your reality. I'm your host, James Bowman, and today we have an amazing interview with none other than Jabbar Adesada. I mean, this guy, he is probably the most ambitious person I think I've ever met in my life. You guys are going to hear him go from, in my opinion, from literal rags to riches, with him joining the military at such a young age, like myself, and really being hungry for not only knowledge, but also being trainable, being ambitious, always asking questions, always being persistent. I mean, this guy, he when you hear his story, you're really going to understand what it takes to be a successful investor. And it's not only in the stock market, but also when you're investing in real estate and you're investing in businesses and you're any type of investment you do, the amount of obstacles you need to overcome are always going to be increasing the higher and higher you go. And you're definitely going to hear that in his story of all of the obstacles he had to overcome in order to get where he is today. I really hope that you guys can listen to the things he's done and the things he's lived through and the objections he's overcome and relate it back to yourself. You might not be able to do every single thing that he has done, but you can definitely try. So I really hope you guys enjoy this interview. I don't want to give away his full story, but let's go ahead and get into the interview with Jabbar. Hey Jabbar, welcome to the Gen Z Money podcast, man. How you doing today?
Man, I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing amazing, man. So let's give a little bit of backstory about how we met. We ended up in the same real estate group, the real estate rookie group. And I saw that you were interacting with a lot of people in there, giving out some good advice, man. And we ended up linking, and we actually live in the same city. So it just shows how small this world is, man. So I'm excited to have you on and talk to you today, man.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. We should link up one day, like get some lunch or dinner or something. I know you're pretty busy, but
Absolutely. I'm not that busy, but yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So let's go ahead and just dive right into your money story, man. Let's start way back in the beginning to little Jabbar. How was money talked about and viewed as you grew up?
all right. So I'll go back to 2 decades ago, when I was 0. I'm just joking. So I grew up. We definitely weren't like poor, like living in like Section 8 housing or anything like that, or on food stamps, but money was always a big concern in my life. So my parents split when I was 3 years old. Like that just like rocked my world. And growing up, I mean, it was just so much strife in the house. Like I remember we'd go to the grocery store and I'd like be like, Mom, can like we put like some chicken or some food and some more food in here because we don't have this in the house anymore. We don't have this food in the house. And then she'd always like kind of lash out on me. She'd be like, hey, like, why don't you ask your dad to pay child support? And then maybe you can have some food, So
Dang.
like, yeah, that was the type of life I kind of grew up in. And so growing up, I just knew like money was kind of like just I knew I didn't want to grow up and like be lacking money, because it just was a constant thing that I would notice. Like I'll go to school, everybody would be eating like Chick-fil-A or chips and sandwich. I'd be eating bread and water like every day. The kids would make fun of me, like, why are you always eating bread and water, and like I remember I'd always ask people for money. I'd be like, hey man, can I get some food? I'm hungry. Can I get I was like that. Let me get $1 type of kid. And
Oh man, I know exactly what you're talking about.
everybody hated me, but it was because I was, I didn't have like that food at home, like all the time. So yeah, man, it was a little bit tougher on that front, but I can't complain. My childhood made me who I was. So when I was 17, about 2 years ago, a little bit over 2 years ago, I joined the United States Marine Corps. I wanted to become a doctor. I wanted to have them pay for school, and then I didn't want to be in all that debt because I saw that doctors go through like $400,000 worth of student loans, and I was like, man, that's not for me. So military is going to be a good way for me to pay for all of that stuff. And so I go through basic training, not thinking about money. In fact, I got back from basic training. I was buying everything. I took all my friends out to lunch and I paid for everything. I thought I was balling because it was the most money I'd seen in my life. It was like $2,500. And I spent money on gadgets, iPhone, Beats headphones, shoes, clothes, everything. Like I just blew everything. And then of course I gave $1,000 to my parents. But I thought I was balling out of control because you don't have any expenses, so you think you're making all this money. And I was falling into the same trap as everybody else. So I flash forward, I get off of leave after basic training, and then I go to combat training. Combat training was throughout the Christmas or throughout the Thanksgiving holiday. So I was fortunate enough that we didn't work on Thanksgiving, thankfully. They had this program where basically families out in the local area would host us for Thanksgiving. So I don't know about you, but for me, like the type of people who are able to host random people for Thanksgiving, these guys were loaded. Let's just say
wealthy people. Yeah,
wealthy, man. Yeah. So they were amazing, and it's not that they were wealthy. It was just like these guys were so happy, man. Like they were living such amazing, awesome, and great lives. And I just was like, man, like I want to be like that. Like Phil, I love Phil to death. I still talk to him all the time today. He is my man. I shout him out all the time. And he changed my life because I got to see how he was living. He's the type of dude to go skydiving in the morning and scuba diving in the afternoon. And like, hey, honey, let's go to Paris just for the weekend, like just spontaneous. And I was like, wow, like I want to be like Phil when I grow up. So I asked Phil, like, hey man, like what do you do? And he was in stocks. He has a business. He runs people's retirement accounts and stuff like that. So they basically, the 401k, like the account managers and things like that. And Phil is a wizard when it comes to individual stock picking. Even though most people say, 99% of people, whatever it is, are bad at that, Phil is actually solid. I know because I've taken his stock picks and I've only lost money once. He's on fire and he's obviously a multimillionaire. But
okay, so let's slow down a little bit, man, because you're throwing a lot of good stuff out there, man. So first of all, thank you for your service, man. It doesn't go unseen.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. So let's go back to when you initially joined the Marine Corps. You mentioned that you wanted to be a doctor.
Yeah.
Was the want to be a doctor more for the financial aspects of being a doctor, or was that something that you were actually passionate about in the medical field?
Okay, so I have a passion for real estate now, so I can tell you, no, it was not because I was passionate about medicine, because I definitely was not as passionate about medicine as I am about real estate. So definitely some of it had to do with the salary, like the income, because, doctors, they make good money. And I thought like the way to do it in life, is like everybody else. You go to school, you get a great job, you get a nice car, nice house, and doctors make, like, I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. And at the time when I looked it up, I think orthopedic surgeons had like the highest salary in the US or something like that. So I actually did, though, I will say this, I actually did want to become a doctor. Like when I was going through like the process, I've been in the operating room. I've seen live surgeries. Like I've stood right over them and I loved it. Like that was awesome. Those memories were amazing. That was the best summer of my life. So I have like 300 hours, like just in the operating room, watching surgeries, helping out wherever I could. And that was dope. But for the most part, it was like, I would say an 80-20, 80% financial, 20% because I thought, the status and the lifestyle of being a doctor was cool. So
yeah, of course, man. And I mean, like you said, doctors are they are one of the highest paying professions, and I think that's why a lot of people go into it. I actually had an interview with someone who is an occupational therapist,
Yep.
and essentially it was the same thing for her, where she went into it for the financial security of it. So that's why I just decided to ask that. Okay, so you mentioned Phil, the stock picker, and so you met him through a hosting for Thanksgiving. Is that right?
Yep. Marine Corps I guess it was like a program with like the locals and Marine Corps. They just hosted people in training over the holidays.
Gotcha. And so that kind of what sparked this whole financial independence investing road, or was there something before that you can recall that kind of started that?
So yes, actually, when I was in high school, all I wanted to do was go to the NBA. So crazy, right? Before doctor, it was be an NBA professional basketball player. I was working hard. Like I literally would work out. Like I've worked out in the gym for 10 hours before, like 8 hours straight. Like just more early mornings, in the afternoon, late at night, skipping school to just hoop. And I was actually pretty bad. I got cut from JV twice, and then I made varsity my junior year, and then I rode the bench. So my parents were African. So in the African household, if you're not a lawyer, doctor, engineer, you're a disappointment. And so I was a disappointment for a very long time. My dad just got fed up with it. He grabbed my basketballs and he popped them. And keep in mind, popping my basketball, that's like at the time, it felt like someone was shooting my dog,
Mm-hmm.
that I've known all my life. And so basically, and the reason he did that, he kind of framed it this way. So our pastor gave us an assignment to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then write a book report on it. And I just didn't do it because I'm like, heck no, man. Like I'm playing basketball. I'm not going to waste my time writing book reports in my free time. Reading? Are you crazy? So basically he passed my basketballs and he's like, you need to read this book and write the report tonight. So I read the book and like, even though I was mad, it was probably like the best book I ever read in my life. I wrote like amazing book report on it, according to like, the pastor or whatever. And like, yeah, it changed my perspective as far as like, I knew that when I started making money, I would invest, but I didn't do anything with that until I met Phil. And then that kind of like kicked that, like, that wheel in my head once he, started giving me books to read and stuff like that.
So guys, I will link a link to Rich Dad Poor Dad in the show notes below. But so with that being said, if you read that book in high school, even though you had the information in your head, did it not come into fruition when you graduated basic training and things like that and started, blowing all your money? Because first of all, you're not the only one, man. We all went through that. Every single one of us that were in the service went through that phase, or at least 99% of us. So I feel it, man. But unfortunately, I didn't have Rich Dad, Poor Dad in high school to, like I didn't start my financial journey before then. So kind of what happened to that information after you had it, and did it kind of just slip your mind after basic and actually getting some real money in your pocket?
Yeah, dude. So I told myself I wanted to invest. I was like making a budget. I remember because my senior drill instructor yelled at me, or he was like, "What?" He just looked at me in disgust because I was making a budget while I was in basic on like what I was going to spend my money on. And I did have plans to invest in the stock market. So everyone else reads Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I guess somehow think real estate. I thought stocks, so I went the other way. And so like I did budget, like I'm gonna put $200 a month towards stock market investing and stuff, and then $200 towards saving and things like that. And I was like, it's one of those things where it's like I'm gonna do that at this point, but then you never do it because like you're like, well, I don't have all these things, and all of a sudden I need to wireless headphones, and all of a sudden I need a new phone, and all of a sudden, I need to take my friends and family out to lunch because they always supported me. It was like one of those things. But trust me, the Kool-Aid we'll get to a little bit later, but I definitely started drinking the Kool-Aid heavily after I met Phil.
Okay, so then let's go ahead and go towards that. So you meet Phil, the stock picker. Where does that go?
So Phil, he gave me 2 books. It was Automatic Millionaire by David Bach, and then it was I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. I think that's how you pronounce it. And so I've read Automatic Millionaire like it was like a week or maybe 5 days. And keep in mind, I don't usually read. And like that book talked about investing and automatically like paying yourself first and all those different financial tips that you don't like learn about in school or at home. And so then and like it talked about compound interest. That was the big thing about the power of compound interest. So all of a sudden I realized, wait, like this book, I'm 18 at this point, right? And everybody else, like the book doesn't even talk about 18-year-olds. It starts at 20. And like 20-year-olds put in $200 a month to become a millionaire at 60. I was like, wait a second. What if I instead of putting $200 a month, I put in, $1,000, $1,200 a month into investing in the stock market? And then what if, because I'm starting at 18 and not 20, that's an even bigger advantage. And so like that just blew my mind, and I became the cheapest bastard ever. Like, oh my gosh, like I would not spend I think in February of 2020, and in March and April of 2020, I spent less than I think I spent $50 in April, like the entire month. Obviously military, we have different lifestyles, so we're able to do that. But like all of my money went towards the stock market and investing. I was addicted. I would talk to Phil all the time about stock market investing advice. And like, I was reading all the articles, all the books, picking stocks, trading options, doing all that crazy stuff, saving 80% of my income, sometimes even more than that. And I was, oh my gosh, dude, like from, I would say from after MCT to all the way to the schoolhouse to when I first hit the fleet, I was just saving a lot of money and putting it in the stock market. And as you guys know, 2020, being 18 and investing was a huge blessing because I got to buy stocks on a discount, man. Like I'm talking about like Tesla at $300 a share pre-split, Microsoft at $140, Apple at like $220 when it was previously at like $400. Square was at $38 a share. Like I literally was like talking to people to see if I could like get their paychecks and invest it, and then I give them my paycheck the next month just because I wanted to take advantage of it. I didn't go through. No one would do it with me because they thought I was crazy. But I literally was investing everything I had into the stocks. So I was like, wait, I was just watching this and everything was up here, and now it's all the way down here. I was like, is Amazon going out of business? Is Apple going out? Like this is crazy. Like I need to put everything in here because this is one of those times where like when everybody is greedy or everybody's fearful, like Warren Buffett says, this is when you get greedy, like hecka greedy. I was like, wow, I'm about to change my life. And I mean, I made good money, a lot of money. I made more in July of 2020 than the Marine Corps had paid me. I guess I hadn't been in for a year yet. So I'd been in for like 11 months and I'd made more in July than the Marine Corps had paid me just from appreciation on stock market prices, just because like the market just rebounded so quickly. And that's when like I really saw the power of investing. And like I had like this roadmap to being a millionaire before I was by 34, because investing that type of money every single month that I was doing, I was on track to be a millionaire by just compound interest by 34. And so that's where that took me. Like I was just crazy in there. And then I was like, I had a good bit of money. I had like 20 or 25 grand now. That is the most money I had up to that point. I thought I was like doing really well. And so that's when I kind of like decided, I was like looking at other avenues because I'd see other people who were 20 years old and millionaires. I'd wonder like, how are they doing that? And then I felt like I wasn't taking a lot of risk investing in stocks. I felt like I felt like I was not like hedging myself for like, those those asymmetric bets that you take on yourself. So I was like, man, I need to start a business, or I need to do real estate or something like that. And that's when in one of these stock market groups, someone sent me to someone was like, I was at one of the stock market groups. It was a Discord. I had a subsection for real estate. I go in there saying like, hey, I have a good bit of money saved up and I want to look into it and see like what this is all about, just on a whim. I had no one in my family does real estate, never heard of it before. And that's when someone sent Bigger Pockets podcast. Like, dude, God bless that guy who sent that in there, especially then. But someone was like, yeah, check out this podcast. It will change your life. And I did. And, and that's kind of where I freaking give Bigger Pockets all the credit of just a small amount of success I've just had so far. Now that I'm 20, just because like it has honestly changed my life like 10 times and changed other people's lives because I help other people and things like that. So yeah.
Just to clarify, guys, I'm going to be linking the Automatic Millionaire he just referred to in the show notes, and I will also be linking I Will Teach You to Be Rich, and for a bonus I will also be linking the Bigger Pockets podcast in the show notes so you guys can hear everything he's talking about right now. And also what he's referring to is there was a huge stock market dip in March due to COVID, due to the speculation and the uncertainty. And so as he said, Warren Buffett always says, when others are fearful, you should be buying. So this is what he did. And I remember this because, okay, so I will say me and you have a bit of a different outlook on investing, but I do remember during that time, I was in a bunch of investing groups and all I saw, there was two things: don't catch a falling knife and dead cat bounce. And these are terms that people use on the stock market to say, oh, the stock market is going to continue dropping. Wait until it hits the ground to pick it up. That's a don't catch a falling knife thing. And also the dead cat bounce is basically when the stock market drops really far, it shoots up momentarily, and then it's supposed to drop again. And I feel like these are only things that people who are stuck in analysis paralysis actually do to justify not taking action. But that's exactly what Jabbar didn't do. He did the complete opposite. He realized that, okay, the knife is falling. Yo, give me your paycheck, man. I will pay you back. I need to hit these things as they're going down. And unfortunately, that's how wealth is created. It's when everybody's saying, and think about it, these are investing groups, and every investing group, there's always those people that are talking about, wait for the crash. We're going to hoard all of our money. Wait for the crash. It's coming. And as soon as it happens, oh no, I'm not buying now. I'm gonna wait till it hit the bottom, or I'm gonna wait. Oh, it might have shot back up, but it's going to hit a new low. And that's the speculative investing. That's why you can't listen to every single person. Jabbar he has a different investing style than I do, even though we are still fundamentally the same, where I was just buying consistently all the way down and I was buying all the way up. So yes, I didn't get the absolute lows, but I did get a bunch of the airline stocks and the Royal Caribbean things as they're dropping 90%. Like Jabbar said, Apple's not going anywhere. Facebook isn't going anywhere. These companies, yes, they might be dropping, but they're not going anywhere. So I'm so glad he pointed that out, because there was a lot of people who were fearful at that time. And when you see the fear, when you see the headlines, it's the people who are really about what they say they're about, they're going to strike at that time. So I'm so glad you brought that up, man.
Yeah, I can't wait for real estate. It won't be fun for like the equity I have in the houses I own, but man,
buying opportunities.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of real estate, let's go ahead and transition over to that. So you were into stocks, and then you decided, I've got this money now I'm gonna transfer asset classes. But the first question I have is, if you were doing so well in stocks, what was it that brought you over to real estate and was so appealing?
Oh, dang it. I hate that you asked this question, because I have to share. So I got a little bit too confident. And so all the money I was making, I was like, wow, like I'm better than Warren Buffett. I know everything. Warren Buffett has nothing on me. Like, I'm about to like become like a millionaire in like 2 years. And so I started trading options, and I bought, and then Phil, he gave me a little bit of confidence too. But Phil would always warn me. He said, "Hey man, like be careful. Like always, like he would give me all these different lessons." And I thought I knew more than Phil at this point, even though he's been doing this for decades. And so I bought Nikola. I don't know if you know, but Nikola was this like electric car company that was super high, and it was doing wonderful when it IPO. Or I don't think IPO. I think it was like a something. I think it was like a SPAC or whatever it's called. That's how you know I shouldn't have been investing in it. But anyways, so the owner, I think, committed some type of fraud, and so, or the president or CEO committed fraud, and I bought at the height. So I bought 100 shares at like $66 a share or $70 a share. It went up to 90, right? Woo, I'm happy. Then it crashed down to 38. And then at some point it goes back up to 50. I'm holding still because I didn't want to lose, I didn't want to lose out on that. I didn't want to lose money. I still had not got back up to 66. Then it went down again. And then it went up one more time to 40. Like the market gave me another chance. It was like, are you sure? Are you sure you don't want to sell? And so I didn't. And then it was at like sub 20. And I sold like a couple months ago for like $10 a share. So that told me, I was like, whoa. Like I wasn't mad, but I was just like, the CEO committing fraud, I could not have controlled any of that. Like I couldn't control any of, and I was doing all these compound interest calculators, and I'm like, wait a second, like if another one of these, like, I'm not going to be able to be on target, and then you start looking at like the different finance models, and I was into the FIRE movement as well because I'm super frugal and I invest in stocks, all that thing. And I'm like, well, the 4% rule is great, but like, I don't think I found out it doesn't really model a huge retirement. And then $1 million with the 4% rule is only 40 grand. Like 40 grand is going to be worth not as much as it is now, when I'm 34 because of inflation and all those different things. So then I just started seeing a lot of things that like didn't sit well with my goals for investing. And I was just like looking at something else. I just, like I said, I didn't feel like I was taking any risk. I felt like my growth was really capped based on like what the market was doing. And I know it's the same with every asset, but like I feel like I need something that like my efforts were rewarded a little bit more. So real estate, some of that dude, like I said, Bigger Pockets, Todd Baldwin's podcast, first podcast I ever listened to. Dude was talking about how he was making multiple six figures, millionaire at like 25 by renting houses by the bedroom in Seattle, Washington. And I listened to that podcast and I was hooked. I was like, whoa, that is possible. Because like the thing about podcasts, I want to share with people is like it's not only just that they're educational, it shows you what is possible. So now, right, I get to see like other people who are coming from different positions in life. Some have more advantages than I do, but some have even less than I do. And they're making all this money and having all this success. I look at that and I'm like, I can pull this and I can do this. I can pull that and I can do this. Like you get all these different ideas that say like, wow, like I really can be, financially independent. That's like, I like in my 20s. So I drank the Bigger Pockets Kool-Aid. I started at episode 1 and went all the way up. And I was trying to buy a house before I turned 18 because I gave myself like this arbitrary number to hit. But yeah, I just was reading books, attending the weekly webinars. I was listening to every podcast. I was door dashing for 4 to 5 hours after work, and I was listening to Bigger Pockets. So I became, and I give that to like the level of just a little bit of knowledge that I have about real estate investing. Just I give it all to Bigger Pockets because I learned so much. And yeah, like I think I found Bigger Pockets. I went to the field, so I got sent on a field exercise with the military. So I didn't want to buy a house then. And then like a month or two when I got back from the field, I think it was like 5 months, I was already under contract for my first property. Before like, yeah, I was like 19 and like a couple of months old. And that's when things kind of became real,
So let's real quick, let's go
Yeah.
back a little bit. Another link, I will be linking Todd Baldwin's podcast in the show notes below that you guys can check it out because these are all great resources. And I mean, you can learn so much just by listening to different people. But you did mention something that I want to go over really quickly. The 4% rule. For those who do not know what the 4% rule is, do you mind just explaining it really quickly?
Okay, yeah. So the 4% rule is just like a rule of thumb that a lot of people in the financial independence retire early community use. And it's basically describing this financial model that when you are entering like your financial independence and you have like, let's say $1 million stock portfolio, you can withdraw 4% of your stock portfolio on an annual basis without you running out of money and then adjusting for inflation being at 2%. And it kind of gets less successful the longer your retirement is. But basically, it's just a rule of thumb to say, like, hey, once you have this stockpile of money in the stock market, you can start to withdraw from it at a 4% withdrawal rate. And it should theoretically last you your entire retirement. But it does have some flaws to it. Did I explain that?
Yeah,
Well?
yeah, that was perfect, man. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about your first ever real estate deal. What was it?
Gotcha. So my first ever real estate deal was a house hack.
Okay, and for those who do not know what house hacking is, can you kind of explain that, please?
So house hacking is one of the best, and I feel like, in my opinion, greatest way for newbies, people getting started, and especially young people to start investing in real estate. And the strategy is basically you buy a property of any type. It could be a single family home, just a regular house, a duplex, triplex, or quadplex. So these are just like multiple units. And then basically, or you could buy like a shopping center. You can do it with almost anything. The principle remains the same, but you basically live or use one portion, or in this case, you live in one portion of the property and then you rent out the others. So if it's a single family home, you would live in one room or on the futon or in a trailer or wherever in the back or however you want to do it in the garage. And you would rent out all the rooms in the house. And then if it was a duplex, a triplex, a quadplex, you would live in one unit, and then you would rent out the other units. And the reason why I bring up the duplex, triplex, and quadplex is because with a house hack, you're actually able to get into a house hack with between 0 to 5% down. That's pretty much standard. Some people put more of a down payment, but 0 to 5% down. So that means if you're a veteran, you're able to buy up to a 4-unit property, live in one unit, and rent out the others. And then like same thing goes with the other loans. So you can put 3.5% down if you're a civilian and things like of that nature. But basically, the goal with a house hack is to cut your living expenses so that you either live for free, you get paid to live for free, like I do, or you can really subsidize your living expenses if you're in a high cost of living area such as California, Seattle. So it really helps because you're able to save instead of the money you put on rent, you're able to save that money and you put towards additional assets, or you can make more money with the house hack. I will get into details on the deal that I have. And then you can also just create you can just be able to have more flexibility with your living situation because you have other people paying your mortgage. And so it's helping out a lot with just like your investing in general, and just it's an amazing thing. I hope I explained that one.
No, yeah, you hit it right on the head, man. And like he said, there are many different types of house hacking where it's a single family home and you're renting out by the room, or if it's a multifamily building like a duplex. And I know a lot of times when people have families, small families, maybe one child or no children, it's just a spouse, they really don't want to be sharing things like a kitchen and bathroom with other people. But that's why being able to buy like a duplex or a triplex or a quadplex, you have your own house. It's just attached to someone else's house. And like Jabbar said, you won't always profit, but you will almost always, as long as it works, lower your living expenses. And the lower your living expenses, the more money you can save and reinvest. So I know a lot of times people look into house hacking and they're like, oh, well, it won't cover the mortgage. But I always ask them, like, okay, but what money are you saving? If you rented something that was the same exact size, how much would it cost compared to now? And we're not even factoring in your appreciation. We're not factoring in your tax benefits. You're not factoring in your mortgage pay down and all these other things that come with home ownership. So I'm really glad that you pointed that out. But we can go ahead and go straight into your first deal, man. If you want to talk about the numbers and how it worked out for you, what kind of property it was and things like that.
Yeah, I got you. So I bought this first deal. I could talk a little bit about how I found it and everything. So I found the property on the MLS. I used a real estate agent from biggerpockets.com. I just searched in my area, real estate agent in Savannah, Georgia, and one popped up. And so I bought this property. I found this property on the MLS. And keep in mind, guys, to know how a property was a good deal, like I said, I was drinking that Bigger Pockets Kool-Aid. I was analyzing like 5 deals a day for practice. So 5 house hacks. I was underwriting BRRRRs because that was a strategy. And I threw another term in there. BRRRR is basically a strategy where you buy a house, remodel it, rent it out, and then you put another loan on it, like a refinance, and then to get all your money back, and then you do it again. But so I was analyzing deals like crazy. But anyway, so with this deal, it was sitting on the MLS, the like your Zillow, your Realtor, it's called the multiple listing service. And for like, it was sitting on the MLS for like 60 days because it was a 1980s home and it was built kind of weirdly. It was a 4-bedroom, 4-bath. And by the house being built weirdly, there's a, in the dining room, there was a bathroom. And then like you could exit and enter the dining room from like an outside door. So it was pretty, it turned a lot of people off. But for me, I saw it was so much opportunity because that dining room with the bedroom was easily able to become a 5th bedroom. So I buy the asset, and I could talk a little bit about can I talk about like journey with buying the house? Because I think people might ask, like, how did you buy the house, or how did you get a loan without 2 years of W-2 and all this different
Absolutely,
type of
man.
things?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to also point out where I was in my financial position. So I had I had like 30 something $1,000 saved up from stock market investing, as I talked about, but I did not have 2 years of W-2s. I did not have a high income. In the Marine Corps, I made $18,000 my first year in the Marine Corps. That's what they paid me, $18,000. And home prices, like to get a 4-bedroom house anywhere, you guys can look. I don't know, in my area, it's Savannah, Georgia, I was looking at like $230,000 and above. It's much higher now. And so and then I didn't have any credit, right? I had just gotten a credit card, and I got lucky there, and I'll talk about that. But I didn't have any credit, so I spoke to 13 different banks. I called 13 different banks. I got 13 different no's, right? But because I listened to podcasts, I was like, I'm just gonna keep calling these guys until someone points me in the right direction. And it was like blatant no's. So then on my 14th call with a bank, I got a maybe. And so that maybe opened doors for me because I was able to find someone who's willing to work with me. And then I called about 19 banks in total before I finally got a yes. So with that, it was just like determination there. I was not gonna not buy a house. So the way I overcame it was because I'm military, even though I only had like a year and a couple months of W-2 income and only one tax return, they saw that I had a 5-year contract. So they basically said, well, this guy's going to keep on getting paid in the future. So we don't have a problem with you there. On the income side of things, I use my VA loan, and the VA loan is a little bit more lenient when it comes to just like you're being able to qualify for the property. So I just had to put 5% down, and that allowed me to qualify for this $246,000 home with my VA loan. With the credit situation, what ended up happening was like a couple weeks into me calling all these banks and being told no, my credit score finally came out, and my credit score was a 757. Luckily, in just 6 months. Don't know how that happened. I just used like very little of my credit and paid it off immediately. That was it. So I got lucky there. And then obviously with the down payment, money from stocks and stuff like that. So yeah, that's how it happened. So the purchase price was $246,000 for this 4-bedroom, 4-bath home. So I put 5% down, so that was $12,300, and then I had to pay my VA funding fee, which was an additional $3,000. So I ended up being out of pocket to get my keys to for it to be my home, about $15,000. And then I furnished the common areas, and then I kind of made that dining room like a makeshift bedroom. So I put a door, I put in 2 wardrobes because I didn't want to put a closet in yet. So to make that like a 5th bedroom. So that was an additional $7,000. So I was all into this property for $22,000 roughly. And so I have the property, and it took me a lot to furnish it, honestly, because I was using Facebook Marketplace. That was a lot of work. But eventually, I finally have the property up and running. I listed on Facebook Marketplace to rent, and no hits, nothing. I think like, oh my God, it was so bad. I was like, what did I just do? Like, I just got this $1,200 mortgage and I have no renters. I'm just a homeowner. So, and then on top of that, last minute, the Marine Corps says, hey, buddy, you're going to Yuma, Arizona to go to the field again because we want you to get some training. So they sent me to the field. I had no tenants, like, and I wasn't too worried because like they gave me like a week or two to like plan it out. So what I ended up doing was while I was in the field, I created like procedures, policies and procedures straight from Bigger Pockets books, gave it to a friend that was back home, and then I trained him like step by step on how to market the home and the house to get the rooms rented. So that actually worked in my favor because I figured it out. I got more confident and I was able to train him really well to do all the things that I wasn't doing myself, because you can kind of see it from that outside view when you're kind of like puppeteering a little bit. He did it 80% as good as I did. And before I came back to the from the field, I had all of my bedrooms rented out, and I came back to a fully rented house and met all my tenants.
Okay, and so what were the total rents that you were collecting from all the bedrooms you were renting out?
$3,775.
And you said your mortgage payment was $1,200.
$1,234. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so let's pause there. Wow. So okay, I mean, I'm trying to find a negative in this. So you're 22,000 in, you've got a $1,230 payment, leaving, so let's just call it, before other expenses, you're netting 2,500 before repairs.
Let's just say
roughly. Huh. So
it's a little bit lower than that. I would say it's like 22-ish.
I'm sorry. I'm speechless. Okay, so you're netting 2,200. You're living for free, and all of this is from a $22,000 investment.
Yes, and because I sleep on the futon. So in the Marine Corps, right? I don't have an open space, right? I get up in the morning and I would usually look at my roommate who stinks, and I'm reminded that like I'm stuck in this cell with this guy. So when I bought a house, I was just happy to have a kitchen and happy to have a yard and, happy to be house hacking. So I take a futon because Craig Kurlop, he wrote the House Hacking Strategy by Bigger Pockets, which he showed me like the possibilities that was within house hacking. I recommend everyone read the House Hacking Strategy by Craig Kurlop. He's a great dude. I met him this weekend. He did the same thing on his first house hack. So I was like, I'm a Marine. If this guy can do it at 24 years old, I can do this at 19 years old. So yeah, it's a fantastic. It's like one of those home runs.
That's a home run. If there is a home run, that is a home run. Now, a lot of people might be listening and thinking, I can't do that. Like, I at least need my own room. I think it's pretty safe to say, with a margin that big, if you would have taken one room for yourself, you would have had your own room and your own bathroom. You still would have been profiting pretty freaking good. Is it safe to say that?
Yeah.
So for all those people who are listening and like, whoa, I could never sleep on a futon in the living room, he's crazy. Okay, could you just have your own room? Yes, you don't have your own house, you won't have your own kitchen, but I mean, the profit and the amount of wealth you're building and the amount of money you're saving is worth it. And it's not forever. It's not, it's for however long you decide to do it.
Right.
You have the choice to say, okay, I'm done house hacking. I'm going to let these guys finish out their leases and I'm going to make this whole house mine. You have that ability at any time. It's just how much are you willing to sacrifice right now?
Yeah. And like, keep in mind, a deal with a wide margin like this, I can rent. Like, people are like, okay, what happens if you can't find renters? And that was one thing that's a pet peeve of mine when people say that. Oh, well, what happens if I can't rent the room? Well, find a good deal. I can rent this house out at $500 a bedroom and I'll still be profiting, And like, $500 is definitely way under market. I'd be cutting my competitors pretty deep there. And then so that's the thing, like, just find a good deal or a deal with a wide enough margin for mistake, because I sure made some. And like, I pay a lot. I've paid for CapEx probably because it's a 1980s home. I don't have like CapEx like the house is breaking down. I have CapEx like something broke in the house and I can't prove who did it. So I have to spend like $50 here and there. But yeah, I definitely did that in my underwriting. I was going to spend a good amount of money on CapEx to begin with. And also people are like, oh, well, that sounds like a lot of work. I have an Airbnb also in the Smoky Mountains, and that makes my house hack. And it's not that much work either, but my house hack, I probably spend 2 to 3 hours max, I would say, outside of like initially setting it up, just managing it. Just that, and that's just bookkeeping, and then just like a tenant interaction here and there. I'm just a glorified virtual assistant.
Mm-hmm. So you are self-managing both of your properties right now?
Yes.
Yeah, ain't nothing wrong with that, man, especially with margins like this. Okay, and for those who do not know, when he mentioned CapEx just stands for capital expenditures, and that's mainly for big things such as replacing appliances or your roof or air conditioner, anything that isn't just a minor repair. And normally you just factor that in. You normally set aside money every month when you're collecting rent to save up for those big things. So when the roof goes out, you're not scrambling to come up with $10,000 or however.
Yeah.
So
that's not a good day.
So, okay. So your house hack is a home run. Okay. So you just mentioned that you have another property, cabin in the Smoky Mountains. Let's go ahead and let's go into that one. How was that one found and the numbers, and let's just go into it, man.
Okay, so after getting a taste of getting $1,000 a month plus in cash flow, let's call it, it's more than that, but after getting that, I was like, I cannot burn and get $300 a month. I just can't. It just wouldn't feel right at this point. Like, I just need something close to that. So then that's when I met this guy at WTI, which is the field exercise I was at, who had 3 cabins. He owns 6 of them right now, but he had 3 cabins and in the Great Smoky Mountains that he bought in 2020, all in 2020. And he was telling me about how well he was doing. And let me explain well. On his 3 cabins, I'm about to blow people's mind. He was netting 150,000, or he is. He's netting more. He's netting $400K a year in cash flow. But on the 3 at the time, he was netting $150,000 a year in just pure cash flow. And the dude's conservative. Like, we're talking like he has $20,000 in reserves per cabin, and his net was $150,000 a year off of 3 residential real estate cabins. I was in shock. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Right. I'm going to do that. And then I listened to Avery Carl, her podcast. She's like the short-term rental woman, like boss lady. She's awesome. And so I got hyped up listening to it, and I was just like, I need to figure out how to do this. But the problem initially was just like, all right, I don't have that much money, right? Because I told you guys I had like 33 grand. I made more money doing other things, but you know, I didn't have a lot. Like, you know, these cabins are like $600,000 now, like 500 to $1 million cabins, and there's no way I could qualify for that. You know, there's no way I could pull it off. But I had read The One Thing by Gary Keller, and in that book, he just talks about he talks about like the level that you're at, and I don't know the exact words, and then you need to set your sights and work towards the level that's like unrealistic, like that unrealized potential. That's not how he says it, but it's close, right? So I was like, okay, rich dad poor dad moment. Instead of saying why can't I buy a $600,000 cabin in the mountains and make all the cash flow, I asked myself, how can I? And so by doing that, I've realized obviously I need a partner. I need money. I need to find money and all these things. And so I went on this grind, this grind. Like, I'm gonna buy a second property, a short-term rental cabin in the Great Smoky Mountains before I turn 20. Another arbitrary deadline that I gave myself. So I did a bunch of research. I'm doing research on the market, on the area, talking to people every single day about properties, learning how to underwrite. I underwrote hundreds, and I know I underwrote hundreds because the BP calculators, they'll be like, what, like, hooray, like you earned this badge for analyzing 500 deals. And I definitely, that was a while ago, and I analyzed way more after that. So I was just like really trying to educate myself because I wanted to be as proficient as possible when I started asking people for money and asking people to partner with me on this property. So what ended up happening, and this story's a grind too, but I learned that as long as I just keep on going and keep on pushing and then keep on, you know, being consistent, persistent, what I want will come. So what I ended up doing, I called everyone in my family, all of my family and friends. No, rejection after rejection after rejection. In fact, my first phone call with a potential investor, I like hung up the phone because I was so freaking nervous. And so what ended up happening was I unintentionally found a partner in my mastermind. It was a new guy that joined. I was telling him how I was struggling to find someone to partner with me on this deal. And it was such a great opportunity. And I was giving away equity and returns and all these things. And so he was like, yeah, sure, man. Like, I would love to. He talked with his wife. We all got on the call and he was down. That's my business partner now. And then for the money portion of it, I was just telling everybody that I knew, took the thing right out of bigger pockets, tell everyone you know you're a real estate investor and what you're looking for. And I kid you not, dude, my master sergeant, someone told my master sergeant what I was looking for. I didn't even tell him because he wasn't on my list of people to talk to, you know, because he's my boss. Like, there's no way in heck like this guy's gonna give me money, right? So someone told him, he's like, hey, like, you need money? I have a bunch of money because he's in real estate as well. He has like a bunch of paid off houses and he's selling them. And I'm looking to deploy. And so he pulls me to his office and the guy's like, yeah, he didn't even care about the deal. He was like, yeah, I saw what you were doing and your level of commitment when you were in the field renting out your properties. And I just believe in you. So he didn't want any details about the deal. He's like, what are your terms? And so I go, well, I need 80 grand. I couldn't believe it. 10% interest only with a 5-year balloon. And I thought the dude was going to counter. And I know I just threw out a bunch of stuff I have to explain now. But basically, I asked him for $80,000 and then at 10% interest. But instead of me paying it with loan principal pay down and interest, I just pay him interest only. So I control when I pay back his 80 grand. And I have 5 years to do that because at 5 years, he gets to get all that. I have to give him all that money back. There's no going back. So that means I need on 80 grand, I needed a 15% return. So I'm thinking like this dude's gonna counter, like these terms are way too good. And he was like, sure. I was like, oh my God, like, it was crazy. So basically so now I have the money, right? And now I have the partner. Crazy. So then and I did a bunch of research to figure out like the logistics and stuff. I'm super confident. I got the cojones. I'm ready. So then I go to Avery Carl. I work with her team. It's this 19-year-old. I know she was thinking this 19-year-old kid's trying to waste my time. He's not going to buy anything. So I ended up working with one of her agents, and we were putting in offers. Like we didn't put in a lot. We put in 10 offers. We got denied on 4. We went under contract. We lost out on 1, and then offer number 10, we hit it. We're all on the MLS, by the way. All these deals were on MLS, and this is a hot market. Deals going $100,000 over asking price. People paying cash offers, $50,000 over asking cash. Like, tough market. We just got lucky that the 10th one stuck. It was on the market. It came out of contract, and then as soon as I saw it, we put the offer in, and my real estate agent actually told me while I was recording another podcast that we got something under contract, and I was hyped. So basically, so that like explains like how I did this one. So basically, the way we structured the partnership was 50-50 everything. Partner A, he buys the property, right? He buys the property, nothing wrong with that. We told the lenders what we were doing and everything. We talked to the attorneys to get our agreement in order, so we're protected both from legal aspects, and talk to our CPAs for the tax side of things. Basically, he buys the property. As soon as he buys the property, I use the private money, right? This debt, and then I gave it to him, giving him all of the down payment back. And then we basically structured it that we pay off the debt. We save enough. We don't take anything. Neither of us take anything until we figure out if we want to take out the debt with a refinance by cash out and refinancing and paying off the debt and getting long-term 30-year debt on that, or by using cash flow. And so I underwrote this deal with the debt and the interest-only payments at a 35% return with the debt, like with the interest payments, and then a 46% return once it's paid off. And so
so before you go any further, I just want to clarify a few things. Okay. So you only had one partner for the deal, and then your leadership, your master sergeant was just a private money lender outside of the deal.
Yes.
So he had no equity stakes in the deal. It was just the money and the interest.
Debt. Yep.
And so I just want to point you guys out. You guys it might sound from the outside that, oh, well, they cut this guy out of the deal. You know, he could have been an equity partner. But first of all, that's not what he wanted. He's making 10% on his money. If he puts his money into the stock market, and let's just say he puts it in an index fund that averages 8%, you know, he's making a better return by lending his money out privately. So it is really a win-win-win situation all around the table. And that's the great thing about real estate is so many people can win. Like, there can be instances where no one loses. The seller doesn't lose because they're getting rid of a property they no longer want. The buyers are winning because they're also making money. The people who are renting from Jabbar and having an amazing time in the cabin, they're winning. So a lot of times people have this perspective where because someone wins, someone else loses. And it's crazy because when you get into this financial space, you realize like wealth is not transferred. Wealth is built. It's created. So Jeff Bezos had an amazing saying. He said, Amazon is worth $1 trillion. He owns $160 billion of it. He created $840 billion of wealth for other people. So it just goes to like, there's not always a loser. There's winners all around, and there can be winners.
Wow, that was great. I like that. That was a genius quote you pulled out there. I've never even thought about that.
Yeah, so true. When he said it, man, it stuck me. I was like, wait a minute. He only owns $160 billion worth of Amazon, and Amazon's $1 trillion company. That means everybody else owns $840 billion worth of Amazon. Yeah. So that's wealth that was created. Amazon was not around 50 years ago. So, and another thing I just want to point out, there is a theme in all of your stories, starting from the bank loans on your first property, how you called the bank and they said no, called another bank and they said no, called another bank and they said no. And you did that 19 times in order to finally secure your first loan. Then you go to trying to find a partner. You're calling everybody you know, and you keep getting no. Then you get a maybe. And then you finally get your partner. Then you go and you're trying to find a deal and you're putting in all these offers and you're hearing no or someone else is getting it, but you persistently continue to make offers until you finally land this thing. There's a very clear point that persistence, I mean, all wealthy people have this. You said a great quote earlier. Instead of at you always ask, how do I do something, not can I do something. How do I do it? That's what I ask my lender all the time. Okay, you can't make this loan happen. How can we make this loan happen? And that's how we work on it. So I just want to point out the persistence in your story as you're continuing to go along.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a really great point.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and go into the numbers on this property. So
All
what are
right.
the numbers looking like?
Okay, so and let me add on to like that win. So the sellers paid 235. I don't know if I believe it was 2020. I thought it was 2016, but I saw it might have been an error, but I saw 2020 the other day. So they won because we paid. They were asking. Let me retract myself. The sellers, they were asking for 579, and we offered them 600,000 with a $10,000 appraisal gap. That's how competitive. That's not even a competitive offering like now. It wasn't then, but with a $10,000 appraisal gap, and the property. So we offered that. It ended up appraising at $610,000. So instant equity there. But basically, we're projecting, since I just bought this property October of 2021. Basically, we're projecting a gross annual income of $90,000 a year, and then we're projecting a net on that $90,000 a year of, I believe it's like 28,000, maybe. It's like 20, it's between 26 and 28,000. Those are like our in-between numbers. Obviously there's lower numbers and then there's a little bit higher numbers, but that's like the in-between number that we're using. That was just like pick the middle one. And so we're all in. So we're all in for $80,000 because we put 10% down. And then yeah, that's kind of how we did the deal. And people will ask, how are you putting 10% down? So you're able to use a vacation home loan. And there's stipulations with that. Ask the lender. We honor all of those stipulations, and we were transparent with the lender what we were doing before purchasing the property. So just putting that out there, because I know people are wondering like, whoa, what? So I just want to put that out there. So that's like a 33% return, or it's like 31 to 33% with the private money interest, meaning, or with the private money, meaning we only, and keep in mind, we need at least 15%. So there's a lot of room for error there. And then for once we finally start taking profits for ourselves, on the debt, obviously for us it's infinite, but on the debt it's a 46% return. And my private money guy, I asked him, he could have been, he didn't want equity. He wanted just interest. Like, he was fine with these terms. He's giving it to another person. He knows exactly what I'm doing. That's what his incentives were. And I love him.
Yeah, and to quickly just go back to what you said gross income and the net. I'm just going to quickly, gross income is basically the income collected before you pay any expenses and any debt servicing. For example, if you sell someone a candy bar for $1, your gross revenue for that is $1. Your net income is after all of the expenses. So if you sell someone a candy bar for $1, you would subtract how much money you actually spent on whether driving there or whatever expenses you incurred and the candy bar cost, and whatever's left over is your net income. So I just want to clarify that, man. Like I said, this is a very beginner podcast, so I want to make sure that I'm answering any questions that anybody might think of. But man,
Yeah.
that sounds pretty good. So what's your business plan going forward with these cabins? And do you have any exit strategies in case things go south?
Oh, for the cabins, right?
Yeah, for any short-term rentals you plan on doing in the future.
So, I love that question. So, I'm gonna steal a line from Tony Robinson from the real estate rookie Facebook group. So a lot of people are like, okay, well, you can't rent it as a long-term rental. Well, so when Hilton or the Marriott, they buy a hotel, they don't say, oh man, I hope we can turn this thing into a long-term rental, or else no, they don't, they typically aren't saying that. But just to go forward with this, so the risk mitigation is actually the area where I purchased this property in. So for me to break even, I have to see a reduction of demand, and for my nightly rate that I charge for the property of 45%. And then on top of that, with this market, 40%, I believe, of North America is within a day's drive of the Great Smoky Mountains. So that's another thing. Lots of demand here. These people have been getting millions of visitors. To put it in perspective, 12 million visitors in the past 2 years, even with COVID. Demand has not been going down. During the 2008 recession, a lot of people think that people are not traveling during those times. Property values did suffer, as in with most of America, I think every part, but you did not see a decline in demand. Actually, demand increased to 3% throughout the recession period, and it continued to grow until now. Also in 2016, I believe it was 30, I'll say the numbers, around 3,500 cabins. So I believe it was a third of the inventory, the supply in that market was wiped out by a great fire. I have insurance to protect me from that, and it will pay me my lost revenue if that happens. But so yeah, so the supply, and geographically, the way the cabins are in the mountains, there's a definitely an inventory issue where there's just not enough cabins for the amount of demand. So I hedged my bet in the fact that, like, what is the scenario at which I will actually lose money from this deal, and can I withstand it? And by all those different things I gave you, the answer is yes. The scenario in which a lot of those things happen, I'm being practical, anything can happen, but they're just not as realistic. And then real estate, right? The one thing that you can rely on is having money. So having reserves. A check can solve a lot of issues. So we do have a lot of money saved up in the event that the property is vacant, that's comfortable for us. And yeah, selling. So your exit is almost to sell, especially because the cabin, you can't get 3 bedrooms for 600,000 anymore. But obviously market peels back, you're still cash flowing. $3,000 a month in cash flow is a pretty wide margin to lose from. So as far as exit strategies, that's kind of how I hedged it in that aspect. If we turn it into a long-term rental, it's possible we can break even, but we believe that we would more than likely just drop our rates in an event that would happen. And then this is a mature vacation rental market. So this market, the city economy thrives off of the income that it gets from taxing Airbnbs. The vacation rentals have been a huge deal before Airbnb and VRBO even existed. The city is very pro Airbnb, and if the city decided to cut that, it would literally be in a recession. That's how much of a big role tourism plays in this market. So that's another level of risk mitigation. I'm just outlining with just demand, just all those different things. It makes me really comfortable in my bet that we'll be able to see even more tremendous profit in the near future.
You know, man, it really warms my heart to see how much confidence the research that you've done into this has given you, because you didn't just look at this deal and say, okay, right now it's cash flowing this amount, so I'm going to go buy it. You looked at it and you said, okay, it's cash flowing this right now. That's nice. But what was this area doing during 2008 when the world was on fire? What was this area doing? What would have to happen to this area in order for me to get worried? Has it ever happened before? What are the odds of it ever happening again? Just like you said, the area literally thrives on Airbnbs, so they have no incentive to get rid of them. While in other areas, Airbnbs are absolutely destroying them. And so doing that research ahead of time while you're picking your market and picking where you want to invest, man, I can tell that it's giving you much more confidence. And I 100% agree, man. every house doesn't have to have 3 exit strategies, whether it's a refinance, sell, rent, blah, blah, but at least having things like a cash reserves and the knowledge to know, okay, this is what history has shown us. So I have no reason to believe things are going to change. And if things do change, we're going to have a lot bigger problems. Like it's going to be
Yeah.
martial law, or, so I really like the confidence that instills in you. But with that being said, man, I want to go ahead and move on to the next segment of our show. All right, Jabbar. So we know that successful people and people who tend to build and maintain wealth, they always have goals. So what are some of your short-term goals that you want to accomplish within the next 6 months to a year?
Okay. So one of my goals is to be financially free before I turn 21. Again, another arbitrary number I threw out there. I plan on doing that is to buy a bunch of more short-term rentals in the near future. I'm actually partnering on some, and hopefully I will be able to close on something in January or one or two, and then another house hack, and it kind of builds on itself. So the goal is $10,000 a month in pure cash flow. That obviously I'm financially free with $3,000 a month, but $10,000 a month is just a nice like round number that sounds cool. So that's what I'm heading for before I'm 21, August 31st or 30th. I forgot my birthday. Yeah, and that's just one of them, just real estate wise.
Okay. So then, well, that leaves a lot of time for you to go into this next question. So then what are some of your long-term goals over the next 5 to 10 years? And what does the finish line look like for you?
Okay. I just want to point out I am 20 years old, so like everything I say is like completely arbitrary and has no basis on really anything because it's hard for me to figure out what my life will look like then. But I've also made another goal of getting to $100,000 a month in cash flow. Just once I figure out how to get to 10, or once I get to 10 grand, I'll figure out how to get to 100 grand. And then I want to get to $1 million a month in just pure like just income, like passive ish income. It doesn't have to be too passive. And that's because I want to wear the title of billionaire. So I did like the compound interest spreadsheet to see like, oh, I'll be a billionaire from like by 60, and that'll be like pretty cool. And honestly, the point of the money, I really don't really care that much about it. It's just like I'm really ambitious, and I find joy in like just achieving goals that I couldn't believe like I'm even talking about. It's kind of scary talking about it right now, but that's what I enjoy, just constantly achieving, going after the next thing. And then I also love giving. So I'm big into like helping out the veterans, and I'm part of Hero Hut. It's like a veterans like help community in Savannah. It's all over the place, and that's something that's important to me in education. And then child abuse, because as a kid I was abused as a child, and I had to go live with my father because I was taken away by child protective services. So although I want to definitely make that footprint and impact to the world just by being able to fund a lot of different families, just being able to give better lives to children and giving them opportunities in education. So that's one reason why the money kind of ties into, is just like I want to be able to give very freely and all the time. And I think that the more that I'm able to achieve, the more I have the what's the word? I have the obligation, it's the responsibility to give back. And I believe that by just accomplishing some of my goals, even if I don't, I'll always be doing that for the rest of my life, just giving, and giving.
And you brought up a really good point. I just want to say, striving to be a billionaire, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Here's why. It's a lot easier for a billionaire to help people than it is someone in poverty. I'm going to be honest, okay? It's just the world we live in, the country we live in. It's just wealth gives you options. So wanting to build wealth in order to help people, in order to change people's lives, there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, some people do not, they build wealth for the wrong reasons. And we can have that conversation back and forth, but they say money is the root of all evil, but it's wealth gives you options, and in wanting to be a billionaire, there's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody wants to be a billionaire. For example, me, I'm cool with a couple million, but I say all that to say it's a lot easier to make impacts on people's lives the wealthier you are, because wealth gives you options. I say that on every single podcast episodes, and I stand by that 100%. So I don't think that goal is absolutely crazy. Within the next 5 years, I hope so. I hope you can become a billionaire in the next 5 years. But at the end of the day, man, I know you're going to go on to do great things. And like you
Thank you.
said, the finish line it's always moving.
Yeah.
As soon as you think you're almost there, you turn your head and you're like, I want to go to that finish line over there. And you
Yeah.
go and you do it. And so, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, man. So,
Yeah. And to clarify, the billionaire goal is just a part, it's attached to like the $1 million a year goal, just being able to invest like 80% of that, or probably not 80, because I don't need like that much money. I probably will never spend it, but just being able to invest it compounded annually at like 12 to 15% in like syndication and stocks and cryptos, things like that would put me at a billionaire like 60 or 70 or something like that.
mhm. Gotcha. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and exit into our last segment of the show. These are the same 5 questions that we ask every single guest that comes on. Jabbar, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it. So, everyone has their own definition of what it means to have financial peace. What is your definition?
Financial peace is basically being able to take care of the people that you love and support the causes that you care about. Yeah, and that just comes from the wealth that you hold. So for some people that's $2,000 a month, and so for other people that's $1 trillion a month. It's just subjective to what that person's values are.
I love that. I love the fact that you specify financial peace as not a number. You don't reach a number and instantly your life is peaceful. It's more about the mindset that you have about money and what you can do with it. So I really love that you pointed out it's not a number. You don't just hit financial peace when you have $1 million in your bank account. It's more of a mindset piece than, at least for me, and obviously it looks like you agree. But I love that you pointed that out. So if there are listeners out there that want to start building wealth and have no clue where to get started, what would you tell them?
Biggerpockets.com. Listen to all the podcasts, read all the books, and you will be fine. Also, make sure you work on your own financial position too, first, I would say, and then start working on like building wealth and increasing your income, like stuff like that. But Bigger Pockets, shout out to them. They are everything.
Absolutely. And Bigger Pockets started off, I found them for the real estate content when I started getting into real estate myself, but they're much bigger than that. They're a platform. They have many podcasts about everyday budgeting. They have the Bigger Pockets Money podcast. They have the Bigger Pockets real estate podcast, where they talk about all types of real estate investors, whether they're wholesaling, flipping, and we've gone over what those things are in past episodes. But then they've also got starting a business. They have the Bigger Pockets business podcast, and they reach out so much, and they have such great content. So I 100% agree with you, man. That is a great place to start. You will get much relatable information and tactical information that you can actually do.
Yeah.
That leads to our next question. If there was one thing you could advise everyone to avoid doing to build wealth, what would it be?
I would say it is just focusing on I think it would be like neglecting your own personal financial position. I feel like it's easy for people to say, oh, well, I'll just go make more money. And I definitely have inflated my lifestyle because living off of $50 isn't feasible, when you have a car and, car insurance and things like that. But, and then I spend more money on like education and things like that. But like outside of that, I'm not like a heavy spender still, even though my income has increased a little bit. And so I would just say, just make sure you're keeping a hard, fast line on your own financial position. and being strong there before you decide to go ahead and invest your money in, or God forbid, for investing with other people's dollars when you yourself aren't strong in your own financial position.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, man. A lot of I get that investing with other people's money is what people enjoy doing, but I really don't like condoning people to use others' money before they've experimented with their own. So if I always advise people never go into your first real estate deal if you have no skin in the game, unless you're doing something like wholesaling or something that doesn't require skin in the game to make a profit. If you're going into a flip and you're using all of someone else's money, your first flip, that's an easy way to put all your mistakes on someone else's dime and to destroy a relationship instead of using your own money, learning the lessons you need to learn, and then coming back and not only making yourself money, but also making the people around you's money. So I'm glad you brought that up. And this is the hardest question on the podcast, man. If you could ask anyone, dead or alive, one question, who would it be and what would you ask them?
I would ask Kobe Bryant, how do I have like that same level of obsession or commitment? Mamba mentality has I definitely try and model it as much as I can, but it's just so hard sometimes. Like some days, you just feel complacent or you just don't have, what you just don't give your all. And Kobe was just someone who gave everything, like 100%. Like his level of commitment and passion was literally insanity.
Absolutely, man. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant, who passed away early in 2020. But anybody who knows Kobe Bryant, which I'm sure most people do, yeah, his work ethic was like no other. And yeah, that's 100%. I would love to hear that conversation because
Yeah.
I see like clips and documentaries of him nowadays and the way he talked about his love for basketball and the commitment he put in. And not only that, but other people talk about the commitment he put in. I mean, it was definitely commendable, man. That's a good one. I think that's a really good one. So Jabbar, where can people find out more about you?
So people can find me on Instagram at Jabbar_investor. So that's JABBAR_investor. So instead of investor like STAR. That's my Instagram, that's my TikTok. And that's also you can find me at Jabbar Adesada at Facebook and what's the other thing? Facebook and Bigger Pockets. Yeah.
Okay, and I will be linking to all of those down in the show notes. So if you guys want to get in contact with him, or even if you got a deal you might want him to look at with you, I'm sure he'd be willing to look over and maybe even partner. I mean, yeah, absolutely. And I'll link all that. You guys can reach out to him and pick his brain, but just make sure that you guys are bringing value, not just bringing an appetite.
Definitely, I'll help as much as I can.
Jabbar, man, I really, really, really appreciate you taking out the time, man, coming on the podcast and talking and telling your story, man. It is so inspirational to see someone who came from such a negative context with money to not only to be where you're at, but to be striving for the goals you're striving for, man. It kind of makes me reevaluate myself and like, man, maybe I should shoot higher. But of course, personal finance is personal. So yeah, man, I really appreciate you taking the time out and coming on, man. This has been really, really a good episode. And I really think it's going to relate to a lot of people.
Thank you, man. It was such an honor.
Yeah, but without further ado, guys, this is Jabbar Adesada. Hope I said that right. Oh, nope, messed it up, huh?
Adesada.
I'm sorry, man.
You're good.
But Appreciate you, man. And hopefully we can have you back on in a few months to a year and see what you've done, man.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. I appreciate you. See you later.
See ya.
All I can say is, wow. I mean, this interview was so enlightening. And it's really got me self reflecting on not only what I've accomplished up to this point, but also what goals I should be shooting for. I mean, shooting for a billion, being a $1 billion person, that is definitely an ambitious goal. And I really hope that he accomplishes that. But as you guys heard in the podcast, he talks about so many different things, such as all of the resources that he has brought him to where he is today and given him all of the knowledge and all of the confidence that he has exhibited today. You guys heard him talk about all of the due diligence and all of the information that he gathered before jumping into just any old investment. And that's what you guys really need to be doing, whether you're investing in a stock market, into a single company, or if you're investing into a broad index fund that holds many different companies, or if you're investing into real estate. There's always research that needs to be done beforehand to build that confidence that you know that there's a high probability that you're going to profit. And he talked about looking all the way back to things like the Great Depression and pulling out a stat that 40% of Americans live within a day's drive of the Smoky Mountains. Like, knowing things like that really helps you sleep at night. A lot of people might have this fear or this, you know, I don't know the name of it, but it's mainly a fear that, you're going to get these 2 a.m. toilet phone calls as a landlord, or you're going to have a tenant who completely trashes your place. And while these fears are valid, if you let them hold you back, then you will never be a really solid, valuable investor. And the more research you do beforehand and the more systems and processes you put in place for when these things do happen, the better your investment journey is going to begin, and the better your investment journey is going to go, and the more wealth you're going to build in the long term. I mean, Jabbar's really got me. He's really got me thinking. Like, I think I need to do more. And personal finance is personal, but I love comparing myself to other people and seeing where I might be slacking in some areas and where I can improve myself. And it's not a keeping up with the Joneses thing. It's more of a, man, if he can do it, I can do it. It's extremely inspirational. And so I hope you guys got some inspiration. This young man's doing so much for a 20-year-old. He's got so much confidence, and he is going to go a long way. But with that being said, we're going to end the show there. I really hope you guys enjoy. And I just want to let you guys know again, we do have the Discord open where you guys can join in. You can talk about finances. You can get in touch with myself or Jonathan or even Jabbar in the Discord and talk with us, ask us questions, pick our brains. That's what we're here for. I told you guys, people who build wealth or who are building wealth, they always want to turn around and reach out that hand and connect with people. And that's what this podcast is about. So you can definitely find the Discord link in the show notes below. But without further ado, guys, I'm James Bowman, host of the Gen Z Money Podcast. And always remember, you're only as secure as your ability to perform. So spend your life accumulating assets that can perform for you. Later, guys.
Even